Alright, last video that I'm going to be doing is going to be taking the square root and quadratic formula. So I've chosen number 18 and 20 for taking square root and number 23 for the quadratic formula. Okay? So taking square root, we've got to think about solving. You're trying to solve and get x by itself because it's not like factoring and quadratic formula where I have to set equal to 0. This one, I am trying to get everything away from x squared, and I'm trying to get everything away from the part that's in the parentheses if we are worrying about that, okay? So on 18, if I want to get x, I have to move everything out of the way. So that means I'm going to be, oh my gosh, my dog is breathing so loud, I'm so sorry. So I have to move the 9 first. If I move the 9, I'm going to be left with negative 10 x squared is equal to 90. Ooh, that's bad. I'm sorry, y'all. This pen is not working very well. And then, to get x squared by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 10. That leaves me with x squared is equal to negative 9. Now, I've got x squared by itself, and so now I have to just take the square root. That's the only way to get just x, okay? So, when I take the square root of both sides, I'm going to be left with x. We notice negative 9 is going to give me an imaginary solution because we have a negative under the radical, and that is a perfect square as well. So my answer is going to be plus or minus 3i. I will not have any radicals left over because my answer is a perfect square. The only difference is that it is imaginary. Now, same for number 20. I am trying to get the x plus 7 squared part by itself. I'm trying to get x where I can get to a point where I can take the square root. So in this one, very similar. I'm going to have to add my 2 on both sides. That's going to leave me with 3 times x plus 7 squared is equal to 24. Now I want to get rid of the 3. I do not want to distribute it. When I divide both sides, it's going to leave me with x plus 7 squared is equal to 8. Okay? And lastly, now I can treat this to solve this by taking the square root to get rid of the squared. That's going to leave me with just, x plus 7 over here is equal to 8. Now, 8 can be not quite sure what just happened there with that little buddy. Oh well. 8 can be simplified into 4 times 2, and then to 2 and 2. So I've got a perfect pair of 2's. This 2 is going to have to stay in. So the square root of 8 is simplified to plus or minus 2 root 2. And now to finish solving, I've got to make sure that I subtract my 7 on both sides. X is going to be equal to negative 7 plus or minus 2 root 2. I cannot simplify that any further because my answer has a radical. So I'm going to go ahead and circle it, and that is it. And then lastly, quadratic formula. So I'm going to write it to the side in a different color so we remember. I'm going to let's write it in green. That sounds good. So, if you remember, quadratic formula is x is equal to opposite of b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac, which is our discriminant, all over 2a. Alright, so in order to do quadratic formula, this is one of the special cases where I do have to be set equal to 0. I have to be in standard form so I can find the correct a, b, and c to plug into my equation. So this one, number 23, was already set equal to 0. it was in standard form, so my x squared came first, then my x, and then my constant came last. So this one I don't have to move at all. And again, the a, b, and c come from your coefficients of each of these terms, or just your constant. So my a value in this this problem would be, if I look at it, my first value, which is 6. My b value is -1, and my c is 5. All right, let's make that a little bit prettier. Trying. So now I have a, b, and c. It's plugging it into the formula. X is equal to opposite of b, so he is -1, so he's going to become a +1, plus or minus the square root. -1 squared. Be careful, make sure those are in parentheses. I would just do it even if it was positive. Plus 4 times a times c, which is 5, all over 2 times a, which is 2 times 6. Okay? So, in order to solve this, we've got to start with our discriminant, which is the part underneath the radical. And if you do this correctly, you should put it in your calculator exactly how you see it here underneath your radical. So, I actually can't find my work for this one, so I'm going to be doing it right now. In my calculator, I am putting parentheses -1 squared oops, hold on, please hold. Squared, alright, minus 4 times 6 times 5. And I get -119. So, since, and this is a good thing to remember because there are discriminant questions, if I am equal to a -119, so underneath my radical is a right here, my discriminant is negative, that would mean that I have a, I have no real solutions, I have 2 imaginary solutions, which makes sense. So now I'm going to have to try to go through and see if I can figure out if 119 divides. So I'm going to start with 2, 2 doesn't go into 119, 3 doesn't, 4 doesn't, alright, so I found out as I was going through that 119 is just 7 times 17, which is not really going to do anything for me. So 7 times 17, both of those are prime, so this is not going to simplify any further. But I do have that negative on the radical, so it will leave me with plus or minus I root 119. I do want to simplify that way over 12. And that would be your answer. So 1 plus or minus I root 119 over 12. Alright, I'm hoping I did these correctly. Please send me questions on your mind. Any questions you have, I will answer them. I'm really tired, so I'm hoping I did my math correctly. Please let me know if I did not. I make mistakes. Clearly, we all do. Mistakes are good. You learn from them. Good luck, study, and I will see you guys next class.